汤王、蒸之王护肝效果好。
The Xiaolin survivors aren't yet safe. Although the authorities now know they are there, they can't get them out. The weather is hampering the rescue. Children, the old and the sick have been exposed on the mountainside for 24 hours. But then, a break in the weather and a rescue mission. But there's a twist in the tale. Mr. Lee had been followed up the mountain by his 2 faithful dogs. The pilots say they can't take the extra weight, but Mr. Lee refuses to leave without them. He tells the pilots that the dogs led them up the mountain, the saviors of Xiaolin.
我什么都没有了，爸爸没有，房子也没有，就剩下这2条狗。如果说我能出去，这2条狗不给它带出去的话，真的我于心不忍了。
对呀、
这样
狗也是命啊，对不对？也是像跟人一样的，他们会跟我们一起逃命，也是他的幸运呐、然后我就撒个谎，叫他带走。
The ordeal is finally over for the survivors of Xiaolin. But they have all left friends and family behind, many of whom will never be found. Taiwan suffers huge damage as Super Typhoon Morakot rips a path across the southern part of the island. After 72 hours, the wind and driving rain have moved on. By the time the typhoon had ended, it left real evidence of climate change, a trail of devastation never seen before. For Mr. Liu, returning to Xiaolin is a shock. He had lived here all of his life. Now everything is gone.
这边啦，55瓶酒，住12个人。
No one had imagined a typhoon could have destroyed this town. His parents, brother and cousins, more than 20 family members, died. He doesn't know what caused the typhoon, but they certainly paid the price.
心肝嘛是介艰苦呢，会想起啊朋友啦是大人啦，啊个亲情足济啊，因为小弟看看拢全亲情。
After overseeing the rescue, Dr. Chen has moved on to reconstruction. How can Taiwan prepare for more typhoons made bigger and more powerful by global warming? The terrain below bears the scars, and they run deep. Swollen floodwaters carried huge boulders and tree trunks that tore up the riverbanks. In some areas, the entire geography has been transformed. It's higher up in the mountains, in the village of Namasya, that the full extent of his job is clear. The village is uninhabitable. Very little can be rebuilt or restored. Another typhoon, even on a much smaller scale, would destroy what's left. As the world heats up, the future of typhoons are bigger and more deadly. Dr. Chen hopes the rest of the world understands Typhoon Morakot is just a warning.
这个是一个世界级的一个大的灾害，然后跟全球的气候变迁有关系啊，所以它带来这样的空前的雨量是超过我们过去200年来所预期的啊。
Professor Liu has been looking at the link between climate change and extreme weather events in his lab in Taipei. Increases in carbon emissions are unquestionably taking their toll. Looking for ways to limit the damage of typhoons like Morakot, they have calculated how powerful the next super typhoon will be, and the results are very disturbing.
我们这个所有的节能减碳都不做的话，那个增加全球温度要增加4度了，增加4度对我们台湾来说，那个这种台风的强降雨增加差不多5倍之多，5.5倍之多，也就是说，这个简直是难以想象的。
Hurricane Katrina, Cyclone Nagas, Typhoon Morakot. Recent extreme weather events that have taken over 100,000 lives. A deadly example of how powerful these storms already are. A typhoon that delivers 5 times the amount of rain that Morakot did is impossible to imagine. And it could be the future of storms to come. For Mrs. Chen and her grandson, there is nothing more to lose. They search through the wreckage of their home in Xiaolin. All of their possessions are buried under the mud and stones, apart from one item. A few weeks after the typhoon, someone found a wooden sculpture washed up downstream. They recognized it as the work of Mrs. Chun's husband, who died earlier that year. The husband to whom she and her grandson had prayed to save them from the floods.
足唔甘，足表示上看到伊呢。嘿，我信了遮久啦，1年啦，我有相信。伊的形象我搁放我头前呀，表示含伊我慢慢做伴，我都无惊。要伊像讲伊要使一世间，安尼。
Survivors across Taiwan tried to rebuild their shattered lives. But climate change and the future storms it may bring could change the way people live on this storm-battered island.
葡萄王